lesson is about object yoga. Okay. Hello students. This lesson is about understanding the number systems. This is the topic you have in class 9, and if you have studied this before, or you may already know a lot of things here. Okay? So what's a number system? So to help you understand number systems, I would want to tell you all right. Where do you think numbers came from, or what was the original idea of studying mathematics? It all began from counting. Yeah? So it was, the basic things that we have in mathematics, or the basic of everything that we have in mathematics, it came from just counting. Okay? So counting numbers were the first thing humans ever needed, and these counting numbers are the first family of numbers we have, and this family is called as natural numbers. Okay, that is the first family that we ever needed. So when I say natural numbers, it is represented by n. Okay, and the meaning of natural basically means it is used to count. So the natural numbers, they always begin from 1. You don't use 0 to count. Okay, so that is the reason this is the first family of numbers that you need to know, and this is what we primarily used. So 1, 2, 3, and it goes up to infinity, because you can count up to infinity. You can just count on and on. So after this, what happened was people needed more numbers, obviously. Okay, so what happened is, think about debts. Back then, when people took debts and when they paid it back off, or when the due was clear, they needed something to represent such scenarios. Yeah. So then there was this new number into the group, or they needed that new number, which is nothing but 0. So after the counting numbers, the next number that was introduced by humans were 0. Now, when you put 0 along with the previous natural numbers, or remember, you don't use 0 to count. So all the counting numbers along with this new number 0 is now called a new family. Now, because a new member has been added, the family is no more natural numbers. We call it by a new name, and that is whole numbers. So, as I said, the first family you have is your natural numbers. Okay? After that came your 0. Upon addition of this number 0, the new family now becomes your whole numbers. We call it whole numbers, along with all the numbers that you had before that were used for counting. Whole numbers. Okay? Whole numbers we denoted by W. Alright. Now, what do you know is after the whole numbers. Now, as I was telling you about the scenarios, people back then had this barter system. Yeah, they used to give and take things. So when they had to represent something like a debt, then they would need something negative, or they actually thought of going backwards, or imagine that people started counting, and after counting came the basic concept of addition. They must have added numbers, and after addition they wanted to pay off debts, and that is how they got 0. And now there could have been a scenario where they wanted to represent something as loss. Yeah. So that is when people needed the negative numbers now. So along with 0, 1, 2, all the counting numbers, they now needed a new family of numbers such that all previous numbers were included along with new members. The new members were now the negative numbers, -1, -2, and of course, just like the counting numbers, the negative numbers would also go till infinity. Now this family of numbers, along with natural numbers, whole numbers, and the new members all together, now they were called by a new name, integers. Okay, now integers are denoted by z. Okay, the reason why they are denoted by z is because z comes from a Greek word zalim. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that means to count. Okay, that is the reason why z letter is used to represent your integers. Interesting. And now what happens after integers is people were set, yeah, give and take, it was all going on. But obviously people could see in nature that things did not exist only as a whole. There were parts, there were fractions. So they needed something to represent those kind of numbers which are not whole. So then they had to introduce themselves to some new members, okay? Or they want to get used to, or they wanted to get introduced to the new set of numbers. So what is that now called? So along with all the numbers that you have so far, they wanted to bring a new family now, okay? They wanted to bring new members. So what is that new member? All the fraction and decimal. Now think about fractions, all decimals, no matter positive, negative, it can be anything, okay? Any such numbers which are always in the form of p by q, they wanted to say that any number which can be represented as a fraction, p upon q, where this denominator q is not equal to 0. Now by then people must have realized that it is not possible to divide by 0, yeah? It is not possible at all, it's undefined, or it is never possible in real life that you divide something by 0. So then this new family of number, okay, all the numbers including the previous numbers that we already talked about, this family of numbers now we call them as rational numbers, okay? Rational numbers. Now rational numbers, as the word suggests, it comes from ratio or quotient. That is why we represent it by q. Quotient, it's an answer that we obtain by division, right? And when you write things in fraction, you are trying to say that it has been divided, it's not whole. So now you see that every natural number, whole number, or integers could be represented as a fraction. So if they are just whole numbers, I can say that this is minus 1 upon 1. You can write 5, you can represent 5, which was a natural number, you can always represent that as a rational number. So this is how the whole family of numbers all together, we call them as rational numbers. Now the question is, are there any more numbers remaining? Yeah? We have spoken of all kinds of numbers. Are there any sort of numbers which we have not yet considered in our family? Then later on, okay, much later, people realize that there could be one more member, or there is one more family of numbers completely different from this family. Okay, now this family, the last family, the whole family we got is the rational numbers, and the rational number definition is to represent something in the form of a fraction. And now people started thinking, are there numbers which cannot be represented as a fraction, where this p and q are just integers? Yeah? So later on, much later, people came to know, or people realized that there is one family which is completely different from this family, and that now becomes completely out of this. Okay, so that new family is called as irrational numbers. So that is our next family. Why irrational? Because till now, whatever numbers people knew, every other number were represented as a fraction, where this p and q could be some integer value. But in now, irrational numbers are the complete different family of numbers, where these numbers are no more represented as fractions. So what are these numbers now? Think of them. Numbers like, pi, for example. Pi is one value which is not a fixed number, or the kind of decimal you get is never terminating, and not only it terminates, or not only it does not terminate, it does not repeat the value as well. So I'm going to tell you one thing. Rational numbers, if you take the example of 1 by 3 and 1 out of 3, 3 is a kind of weird number, because if you divide by 3, you really cannot divide it into fixed value. The answer you get is something like 0.333, and it keeps on repeating, though it is still it is still rational. Why? Because I was able to represent it as a fraction, or a upon b form. But if you take the numbers from irrational, then they'll be completely different, like your square root numbers. Now, what does square root 2 mean? For example, if you have to think about this number square root 2, where do you see in nature? Imagine you have a box which is of 1 meter this side, or 1 unit, and it's 1 unit again. Then now if you have to think about the diagonal length, it will never be a whole number, or it will not be a fixed number like 1 or 2. It is going to definitely be something like 1.41, or the decimal that you get is also not a fixed decimal value. You'll just get an approximated decimal value out there. When you take this as 1 unit and this as 1 unit. Okay, you can do this by Pythagoras theorem, and when you do that, you are finding the hypotenuse with the base and the height as 1 unit each. So to find the hypotenuse, I believe you know this already. What you have to find the hypotenuse, what you can do is you can just take the square of the hypotenuse. Yeah, it is always equal to the square of the base and the height, so which is 1 square plus 1 square, which gives you 2, overall 2. 1 square is 1 and 1 square is 1, so 1 plus 1, 2. And now OB, the length of OB will simply be square root of 2, because OB square was 2, right? So what does that mean? Basically, if you have a square of 1 unit, then the diagonal length will always be that root 2, which is never a fixed value, or it's never a kind of decimal or a fraction which will terminate. Okay, such kind of values are now called as non-terminating, non-repeating. Okay, you call them as non-terminating, non-repeating decimals. So that is the definition of irrational numbers. They are never terminating, never repeating. Never repeating as in the digits, just like if you see in case of 1 by 3, you saw that a particular digit was repeating. It was repeating, right? You can take any such example where you have both, numbers in a fraction, any kind of question like 1 by 7 if you'll take. Then you will see that you'll get some answer, and after that, the same set of digits will repeat. Okay, but you don't see that in irrational numbers. If you go on to use your calculator and find out the value of square root 2, the values will never repeat. It goes on from 1.414, and then it goes on without following a specific pattern. So non-repeating, non-terminating decimals are the other way you could say they are your irrational numbers. So that is the main family, or this is the entire family of numbers. Now if I have to bring all of them together, if I have to say all of this in one family, then this entire family is now called your real numbers. Okay, the entire family that I have discussed so far, all the numbers that you have studied till now, this one, this is your real number. The whole thing is now called your real number. It's interesting. and this is the entire thing you want to know. This is not just helpful for class 9. The next, when you go to class 10, the first topic is real numbers, and this is what you must know when you study that topic. So this is the entire family, that family of numbers you need to know, and I hope that made sense. The first part of this topic does not talk about irrational numbers. Okay, firstly they want you to operate the rational numbers properly and find numbers between natural numbers. Okay, this is all you have. All right, and with this I will definitely show you how exactly you can operate with rational numbers as well as irrational numbers. But this is the basic introduction to this topic. So I hope that made sense, and I hope you will never forget. You will never forget this. This concept of numbers, and I would like to show you some kind of questions that you come. This is the first part of the topic, as I suggested, right? So what do you have is in the next part. Okay, let's do one thing. The next following part after this would be exercise 1.1, where I want you to understand how we deal with rational numbers, finding numbers in between them, and we'll try some exercise questions definitely. Okay, that is it for now. I will see you again.